How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. This is Tarafdar, your guide and mentor. It's been a while. We haven't discussed. It's been almost a week now, and as promised, I'm bringing you brand new content. Today's conversation is actually quite unique, and that's basically analyzing 2 months of credit repair services and some of the clients that are coming back to me with some tough questions in reference to the steps to follow post the first documentation that they've sent out to the credit bureaus. Now, lately I've gotten a lot of comments on the videos, and some of these comments start with the idea of like, hey, I've sent out my documentation, what's the next steps that I need to take, and what exactly do I need to put in that document for me to get the best type of outcomes or results. Objectively, what you want to look at right now is essentially trying to figure out, what would make the most sense to complement the existing strategy that you deployed. A lot of people try to deploy different type of tactics that are not necessarily correlating with the existing efforts of fixing your personal credit. I'll give you a very strong example of this. Let's assume that you sent out your credit repair documents and you're trying to fix maybe, let's say, a collection account that's on your credit reports, and you're sending a validation letter. And I spoke to somebody and we've clarified that, but you're essentially sending a validation letter to the credit bureaus, right? So the problem with that is the credit bureaus don't necessarily care about a validation letter. The credit bureau's sole responsibility and duty is geared around credit reporting and not per se validation. So what does that mean in a sense of like you, let's say, trying to figure out things with the collection side? If you're addressing the credit bureaus, right, and you're sending out documentation to the credit reporting agencies, you got to gear your attack strategy towards credit reporting. So you got to change your strategy on that, right? So when you look at a collection account, and there was another question that a gentleman asked, hey, Ali, the payment grid. And when we did this on a live stream, and we looked at the payment grid as the first example of how non-compliant credit reporting is with creditors. And he asked me, hey, these are collection agencies. Can I use the payment grid to attack them or strategize a defense mechanism around that? And the reality is you can, right? Because at the end of the day, that is credit reporting related. So when it comes to dealing with debt collectors, and let's say if you want to use a dual attack strategy, when I say dual attack, it would be 2 sets of documentation sent for their 2 different intents purposes. And one could be directly to the credit reporting agency, which is the payment grid breakdown, and assuming like a series of other questions that you can ask based on the structure of the account itself. The secondary strategy would be the debt collector side, which you can request a validation, and you can request certified accounting documentation on that account. See, that's another question that you can actually ask. A simple validation such as, let's say, utility bills, statements, etc. Perhaps you should indicate in your document when you're sending a validation to the debt collector that simple format of a statement is not acceptable. See, if you're not very clear with your attack strategy, the likelihood of you getting outcomes is very minimal. So again, just to reiterate, when you're sending a validation letter to the credit bureaus, they don't necessarily have to respond based on that because it is not within their purview, right? Their credit reporting. So be more tactical in reference to how you deal with the credit bureaus, specifically when it's related to an account, and stick to the game plan of credit reporting. Don't go outside of that. If you're dealing with debt collectors and you want to angle an attack in which you're essentially challenging the validity of the debt, perhaps the basic level of accounting of it, whether it exists or not, then you got to say, I'm requesting certified financial documentation that enables me to accept, right, that you, number one, have the right to collect. And by the way, there's so many different areas in reference to how to collect when it comes to that specific area, legally speaking, that is, right? So, you got so many different strategies that you can deploy when it comes to. Just to continue on the next processes when it comes to credit reporting. So you've attacked the collection agency side and the matter of the collection agencies through the structured documentation process, like I said. So you got to find a way to hone in on the specifics of a credit reporting structure when you're looking at the credit bureaus, and you want to take down some of those negative items. See, specificity is very important, right? Not just for the sake of getting those negative items removed, but making sure that they stay off, right? There's another issue that we have to address here, and that elephant in the room is the fact that a lot of people will deploy multiple different credit repair strategies and tactics behind the scenes. The problem is, how long is that going to stay off? Now, you might not care because you're going to remove those negatives in a short period of time, add some AUs for God knows why, get some funding, and you can continue doing this over and over again. But what happens over time is there's an incremental level of negative items that will remain, right? And eventually what happens is there's a certain level of time that you have to act in order to really get that level of enforcement so that they can stay off. So it's not a perspective of just the way you're attacking as to how to get those negative items off. It's how to get those negative items off and then they stay off. for the duration of the term of the life, right? Especially when it comes to credit repair. So your attack strategies have to be considered around a permanent removal, and you have to do things that make sense on a sense of litigation. Now, the reason I say that, and by the way, I'm not an attorney, I'm disclosing this to you guys, but the reason I say that you got to treat every file as though you were going to litigate the bureaus is because the credit bureaus are governed under a certain level of laws. The Fair Credit Reporting Act per se. When you're starting the level of framework to fix your credit, and if you noticed around the entire channel that I've built for you guys, and if you watch some of my videos, I don't stick too much to the Fair Credit Reporting terminologies. And the reason why I don't do that is because I built a file around basic level of compliance on how to report stuff. If the creditors are not complying to those basic sets of rules and regulations, chances are that they're already in violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. You can't go in and reveal all the cards that you have on your side at the first round. That's got to be tactical, and you got to do it in such a way that by the time you get to, let's say, the third or fourth round, you have a pretty substantial package and evidence against them for a lot of different things, including negligence, non-compliance, and misleading reporting. And it's not just a perspective of the credit bureaus making that mistake, it's also about the creditors. So what you guys have to understand, that what I'm trying to share with you guys here is, whatever you do, and however you go about, fixing your personal credit, number one, make sure that it stays off, that there is no chance of that item coming back on. But the second thing also you got to worry about is the strategy that you're deploying. Are you revealing all your cards that you have with you on the table from day one? And if that be the case, you're basically disadvantaging yourself from actually getting a serious level of punitive and statutory damages that can be issued against those creditors, in addition to the bureaus for their negligence. And at the end of the day, those type of settlement structures actually get those negative items to stay off, but at the same time helps you get the clean credit. And sometimes you might be wondering to yourself, with all these type of strategies that you may potentially deploy, with all these things that you'd have in your hands, what about a lawyer or attorney, right? You're trying to fix your credit on your own, and you're trying to keep the costs down. Why do we need to worry about these type of things? And the reality is, credit repair has to have some sort of sense of litigation behind it as well. Because if you want to enforce your rights, right, if you want to get those items off, and if you want to think about getting the best type of outcomes, you kind of have to think that way. You have to coordinate your thought process in reference to getting that results, and getting those results to stick around some sort of litigation structure. Now, I'm not saying right off the day one you'll need a lawyer. No, I'm saying that when you're building a structure of attack, and you have collected enough evidence over time, and you've seen that they've been negligent, and you've documented that, heck, you even created an affidavit of truth and fact and statement of accounts based on the activities that you've done so far and how their responses were to your activities, you have a lot more substantial evidence and some sort of substance that you can take to an attorney that will potentially work on contingency for you. And I say potentially, it's because they might be very busy with some of their existing clients, but there's a whole lot of consumer advocacy groups out there that will assist you. I'm actually working with the Boston Wealth Institute, which is a nonprofit organization that helps you get situated with that as well. But you have to have some sort of attack strategy already deployed for them to even consider taking the file on. So again, just to reiterate, if you're attacking a debt collector on a credit reporting side by a validation letter and sending that to the bureaus, there's not going to be much weight because it's not credit reporting related. Use it in a sense that when it comes to credit reporting related, study the item in general and how it's reported. Use that infrastructure, then go for your attack. In addition to that, every single strategy that you deploy, make sure there's human sense to that, and a sense of breaking down that account on a logistical perspective. And I showed you guys that in my live stream, which you can, by the way, find below this video. If you want to go check that video out, you'll be able to learn more about what I'm talking about here so that you can study the material. It's an hour long, so it's not extensive, but at the same time, it's very in-depth. I answer some questions, but I also show you guys how to do it the proper way, which is the most important thing. Also, every single time that you guys go ahead and send the documentation, a lot of people say don't sign your documents. And I want you to think against that, because if you don't sign your documents, there is no reason as to why the credit bureau should accept that, because they can simply say, perhaps this wasn't sent by you. And if you say, no, it was, then they can ask, why didn't you sign it? And you say, well, it just didn't feel like it. It's not a reasonable enough answer. You cannot defend yourself based on that. The only way to defend yourself is to make sure that you've done everything in your capacity to ensure compliance on your end, to ensure the communication was met at the highest standard on your side. And from that perspective, you're going to go ahead and get the results that you're looking for. So again, think very clearly about the advice you're listening to, whether it's going to help you or it's going to go against you. Whatever it is, you got to weigh the pros and cons of every single tactic. But ultimately, try to be logistical about how you do it. Be very strategic in reference to starting from day one to, day, 300 in reference to getting the outcome of your credit. And every single step is progressive to help you rather than them, and stacking against them rather than you, and showing that you were kind of not filling certain levels of expectation on your side because you decided not to sign some documents or send certified mail, or for that matter, notarized documentation, certifying under oath that it is you who signed those documents. So there's a whole lot of weight if you do it right. And if you don't do it right, there's a whole lot of holes that you can potentially fall into and perhaps not get back out of. So I just wanted to make it very short for you guys. And I hope that this kind of gave you an insight on what some of the steps that you need to follow, how to rethink some of the strategies of credit repair. I'm gonna leave it off with one last thing with you guys, and I think you gotta think very, very strong about this one. I've seen a group of people lately, especially some of the bigger channels on credit repair, and I'm not going to talk about who they are because that's not my business. Perhaps that's the way of making a living, and I'm not going to go ahead and attack them. But one of the things that I don't like is deceit, right? So the biggest thing that they're talking about is, oh, we have a software side. We don't do letters and documentation. Here, my friends, there is no software that you can potentially have unless you have a subscription agreement with the credit bureaus, and to modify accounts of other creditors from your software side is not even a possibility. Every single subscriber have their subscriber codes with their credit bureaus, and a subscriber is a credit reporting company that is reporting to the bureaus. You cannot go ahead and modify another company's information just because you have access to the software, right? On top of that, the dispute process to ensure the items do stay off have to follow specific levels of protocol, right? For example, you can go and dispute online, but does it mean that you'll get the best outcome? Perhaps you might, but when it comes to actually getting a legitimate lawsuit against them, you've waived that right, because there's something called a binding arbitration agreement that is set in software strategies and the privacy policy and the use of that software in order to go through eOscar Online to dispute. I'm not going too much into the legal jargon. That's going to bore you guys. I think it's going to throw you down a rabbit hole that I don't want to do at this time. But very, very careful, especially when it comes to listening to those individuals who are saying, well, we got alternative strategy. We don't do mail and stuff like that. Logistically speaking, that's impossible. And I'll tell you why. Because in my career days, until now, I help companies set up credit reporting with the bureaus, right? So I know exactly what are some of the specific compliant rules and regulations, paperwork, in addition to the codes that are necessary in order to start that reporting relationship, in order to pull the credit bureaus as well. There are certain rules and regulations that needs to be followed, and they're very strict about that, right? So there's a whole lot of reasons why primary season trade lines don't exist also. And if they do, there are certain things that are being behind the scenes done that are purposely putting your file at risk as well. And we're gonna go deep into that at some other point, but not today. So I hope this video gave you guys some insights on some of the strategies that you really need to be careful with and cautious with. And what are some of the things that you have to be careful with when someone promises you certain things that may potentially not come to be a reality. And how to understand that information at the highest level of standard, A, to protect yourself, and B, to get the best type of outcomes possible out there. With that said, my friends, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe and turn the notifications on to all if you want to enjoy some of the most advanced credit repair strategies and tactics that YouTube has to offer. And with that said, this is definitely your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafdar. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.